friend from Sports Illustrated, Albert Breer, here on the Rich Eisen Show. Sorry, Albert, I was late for you here, but I was going through the history of Marshall Goldberg in my book, Great Jews in Sports, that I have here on our set. So if you ever need that for research, I've got that for you, Albert. You know who to reach out to.
All right. Well, I assume like Jay Fiedler would be in there, right? Like I don't know if I have all the names, but I could probably rattle off.
Interestingly enough, like to just find Marshall Goldberg, I had to sift through Hank Greenberg, obviously very close, and Randy Grossman. Randy Grossman, the football player, was called Rabbi. That's the name of his entry here. Don't find that in Wikipedia, but I had to look him up because I actually had no idea who he was when J.J. Watt, it was announced, was taking his number, thanks to the family's good graces to let him have it. I had no idea.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool too. Like, to me, like the effect of that. I mean, who cares if a guy's number's retired? Really, you know what I mean? Like the effect of that to me was like. That it really like allowed a lot of people to kind of educate themselves on a guy who has a really cool story.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, if they take it out of circulation, you know, if it goes back into circulation for a couple of years, so JJ can win it, can wear it, and then, you know, a whole bunch of new people who didn't know about Marshall Goldberg now know about him, like that to me is a pretty good result, right?
Well, two people who'd left to mind before I learned who Marshall Goldberg was, Albert, in terms of J.J. Watt's signing and how it might affect the immediate, were Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson. Because if Russell's concerned about his protection, I would imagine that sort of sensibility just got heightened even more, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
With the signing.
Yeah, and I think like it's really interesting to me, like, because I think we all kind of, you know, when a guy like JJ, who's, you know, at the tail end of his career, you know, becomes a free agent, we all just assume the guy's going to go like ring chasing, right? Like, so it's like, okay, like, well, you know, he's just going to go, you know, to whatever, to Tampa, to Kansas City, like to some place that's going to create the easiest path to a ring. And I think sometimes what we discount is like the personal pride that these guys have, and you know, when you put so much into your craft, maybe wanting to prove that you have something left. And I think that was such a huge part of why JJ did this, you know, is that he's going to a place where he knows the defensive coordinator. Vance Joseph was in Houston for his first 3 years, for Watt's first 3 years there. And the system itself is almost identical to the Wade Phillips system that JJ played really well in those years, you know, and so the ability to go there and hit the ground running, play opposite Chandler Jones, which obviously means, you know, he's probably in its more favorable matchup. It gives JJ a really good shot to show he has something left. And I think with a lot of times when we look at players and their decisions they make in spots like this, you sort of discount that sort of thing. And I think it was definitely a factor.
Well, and I love the signing, and I just love where he winds up in that division. That is so damn fascinating, you know, where the fact is we are barely into March, right? And free agency the new league year is about 2 weeks away right now. And Matthew Stafford and J.J. Watt have already entered this division that's going to get Nick Bosa back from injury. And then who knows what the 49ers might do at their quarterback spot. But I just want to linger a little bit on the Russell Wilson of it for a moment with you and tell me what is going on there, because if he is concerned about his protection, if that's the one thing, I don't know how Seattle is going to, you know, what do? They make a free agent signing? Do they go ahead and draft somebody, or do they just say we're just going to be who we are and Russ is under contract and that's the end of that, or will Russ? I mean, what happens now? Do you think?
Well, Rich, he had a couple of meetings after the season, you know, where like he really did address this stuff, and so you know it was with his own team. It was also with Pete Carroll. You know, and really, like coming out of that, I know that Russell sort of felt like there were three things he wanted to have accomplished. And number one, like, you know, he wanted a scheme with a new offensive coordinator that would give him a chance to best highlight his skills. And that box has already been checked. They brought in Shane Waldron from the Rams. I know he was on board with the hire, so he liked that. And that left two more boxes. One was fixing the offensive line, and two was, you know, having communication on the direction of the franchise and what it's going to look like over the next few years. And so, you know, I think the Seahawks were amenable to that. I think what really pissed the Seahawks off, for lack of a better way of putting it, was that he went public with it. And I think part of it for him was, like, I want to create urgency, and I want to put urgency on them. But you have to look at it, if you're the Seahawks, right, and you're saying to yourself, okay, like, we've already been through so much with this guy, whether it was the friction with the Legion of Boom guys or it was the contract situations and Russell maybe wanting a baseball contract, or if it was the grumbling over all those years with the scheme and with there was all this stuff, right? So you can certainly see where the Seahawks are looking at this and saying to themselves, enough's enough. Like we need to fix this. And so to me, like, you look at all that history, right, and the two things that Russell has left on his list. I think those things can be accomplished. But to me, like, I think where the Seahawks are on this is we really need to just kind of put an end to this year-to-year thing where there's always an issue, there's always some drama. I think what the Seahawks would like is to find a way to sit down and meet with him and try to see if there's a way where they can put it to bed where it's not an issue for the next 3 or 4 years. And if they can't put that to bed, and who the hell knows what's going to happen 7 or 8 years from now, right? Like, we don't know who's going to be the coach, any of that. But at least for the duration of his contract, kind of get to a place where this isn't a year-to-year thing where there's always drama. And, I think that, Russell going public with a lot of this stuff is what pushed them to that point.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. I feel like with the Deshaun Watson story or situation, however you want to use it, I feel like I'm watching – like hard cable news after a major piece of news happens, and then I just watch it for 10, 12, 14, 15 straight hours, waiting for the next, iteration, the next news cycle to actually affect what I'm talking about or watching being talked about nonstop with the story not changing. That's the way I feel. And I feel like at some point I'm going to be on the phone with somebody like yourself or another colleague of ours in the business, and something is going to, the other shoe's going to drop, right? Unless the Texans really feel like the shoes don't have to drop. What the hell is going on there right now, Albert?
Well, nothing. Is the best way to put it. I think, unless and until one of the two sides moves off their position, we sort of are where we are. And, I think it's obvious. Texans' position is we're not moving him, and Watson's position is I don't want to be here, and so, like, until one of the sides moves off one of those positions, then we're going to be where we're going to be. And, I think one of the things that puts it in the sort of spot that you just described, there really isn't tension, right? Like, there really isn't, like, tension on the Texans to do something right now. Now, maybe there will be, like, a few weeks down the line, but, it's not like with, the Eagles and Carson Wentz or the Jets and Sam Darnold where, you got to be worried that, like, if you don't move the guy before the middle of March, seats could start filling up, and all of a sudden now you can't find a suitor and you can't get value for him. Deshaun Watson's such a good player that his value is going to hold. So it doesn't really matter if you trade him tomorrow or if you trade him on April 20th. And that's why, to me, like, this thing is probably going to be where it is, and the Texans are going to probably try to do some more to fix the relationship before it gets to the point where he's actually traded. And I really look at it, the next deadline to me would be the draft, because if you are going to move Deshaun Watson, I would think that you would want to try to get some sort of long-term answer at the position in return. And once you get past the draft, now you're talking about maybe trading them for draft picks. You don't know where they're going to be, obviously in 2022. And you don't even know, what that class is going to look like. There's no Trevor Lawrence next year. Like, next year's draft class looks fairly bereft of quarterbacks. So, like, I would say that the draft is probably the time when the Texans might feel the need to make a trade, or feel the need to make a decision, or feel the need to get some sort of closure on the issue. But they don't have to do it right now. And I think because Nick Caserio understands he has such a precious commodity in Deshaun Watson, a 25-year-old top 5 quarterback, like, it behooves him over the next 5 or 6 weeks, at least until we get closer to the draft, to do every single thing he possibly can to get it done, to get something, to do something to try and, make the situation a little bit more amenable to whatever Deshaun Watson's looking for.
But your word choice is specific for a reason, Albert. There's a difference between having to and should do, okay? And the should do is heads the have to off at the pass. That if you wait till you have to do it, you don't have nearly as many options as when you do it when you should do it. And that there is a free agency period where a couple of NFC teams where you might be able to put Deshaun so you don't see him once every 4 years would go off the board if they go in a certain direction, or another team that would be a great spot for you to land him in for your own purposes, whether draft wise or geographically, so you don't see him once every 4 years. Somebody might fall in love with one of these aforementioned quarterbacks that are in this year's draft and just say, you know what, as much as we think Deshaun's great, your price is too damn high and he costs too damn much. We're just going to sit back and we love this kid. We're going to go to work with our own person. And the longer you wait by ignoring the fact that the have to is going to come home to roost at some point, you know, that's my issue with this, and that's what I keep revisiting on literally on a daily basis on this show, Albert.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key really is to me is like those two AFC East teams, right? So, like you look at like what the Jets and Dolphins have to offer. You know, they both have top 3 picks.
It's perfect.
They both have 23-year-old quarterbacks. So, I mean, you could theoretically. Like with those two teams, like say you like Tua or you like Sam, right? Like if you're the Texans, you theoretically could come away with a quarterback who's 2 years younger than Deshaun and a top 3 pick, you know? So like to me, like those teams would be the key and how in on it they are. And I think both teams are very, very interested and would be interested in Deshaun if he became available. So they're the key to me. And then I think Carolina sort of lingering out there.
Yes.
You know, I've been told by several people that David Tepper, their owner, who's still newish, you know, he's like that. He was very much like obsessed, you know, with getting the quarterback position right.
Yeah.
And would take a very big swing and would want his football people to take a very, very big swing at Deshaun Watson. So, I mean, like as long as those 3 situations remain unresolved, as long as those 3 teams are there, to me, like I think you're going to be able to get really great value. And even if one drops off the board, like let's say, you know, your scenario that Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh and Michael LaFleur, like they fall in love with Zach Wilson, right? And we're taking him second overall. Well, then you still have the Dolphins and the Panthers, you know? So I still think that, you know, the presence of those 3 teams in the top 8 would at least give you like a really, really good chance to get a great return for Deshaun. And I don't think right now that, you know, you're going to be in a situation 6 weeks from now where all 3 of those options as trade partners would dry up.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. I'll ask you again. This could be this could be not age well at all. It could be no longer evergreen 5 minutes from now. But is Drew Brees going to retire? I mean, what's going on, and what's the Saints' quarterback plans? What do you got for me on that front?
I mean, I think he is. You know, it was funny because, and I don't know if you'd heard this, but this was like a pretty rampant thing, a very pretty rampant like idea that I guess is the right way to put it, that I'd heard last year that like part of what pushed Drew Brees to come back, you know, last year was that like he knew Tom Brady had some interest in New Orleans. And so, like, you know, I think there was this idea at least lingering out there that Drew wasn't going to let Tom come in and win a Super Bowl with his team, so he was going to come back and try to do it himself. And it was funny to, you know, you heard that. It's kind of like, you know, one of those things where, you know, like you're not talking about it like it's fact, but it's just there were breadcrumbs around it and everything else. And somebody pointed out to me over the weekend, do you think it's any coincidence that Drew Brees dropped that video right after Russell Wilson put the Saints on his list?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. It's all related.
I mean, think about that, right? Isn't that kind of interesting? How like
so
you're saying
Brees is comfortable with Jameis following him, but not Russell or Brady? Is that what you're kind of picking up and down?
Hey, look, like, you know, like I don't know. It might be marking his territory a little bit there by pushing that way. Get your trainer out there. I'm going to go push a sled down the street and show Russell whose team it is. I don't know. You know, I just thought it was, but somebody brought that up to me, so I thought it was interesting. the one thing I would say logistically that's interesting about this is, like,
wow.
he's taken a pay cut. He already that was already processed, right?
Right.
So on I think it would have been February 4th, I think it was. They actually processed the pay cut, which was down from about $25 million to the minimum for a player of his age, which is a little over $1 million. So he took a pay cut of almost $24 million already, and it's not like he can just reverse that. You know what I mean? Like, so,
right.
Like, I don't know. Like, would Brees come back and play for the league minimum in 2021? I don't know. But to me, like that, like, and to people around the league, that was a pretty clear sign that he's retiring. Because the reason you would do that,
right,
would be to do the team a favor, because that's going to allow them to carry him on their salary cap until June 1st, at which point they can cut him and spread the cap damage out. You know, and so, like, there is at least like a tangible piece of evidence there that's, you know, Brees, his plan all along has been to retire, and for him to unretire at that point, like, the Saints could actually hold him to that and say, okay, well, if you want to come back, you got to play for the minimum, which is, you know, just a crazy idea to think about. But I don't think it'll come to that. My guess is that we're going to get an announcement at some point in the near future that he's retiring.
And plus, you got to be in shape to do this job in studio, because there's a lot of sitting on your ass, craft services. I mean, if you need to come in shape if you're going to start doing studio stuff, because you can get out of shape pretty damn fast.
That's right. Well, maybe you could. Do you have like a training program?
Oh, I can coach. Oh, yes,
down to San Diego for him.
Yes, the RE1 system. I'll send it down to him. And
there it is.
You know what? There's one last quarterback situation I want to hit you on before I let you go, which is fascinating to me. And there's not much talk about it because we're all focused on that bright, shiny object called the Lombardi Trophy that Tom Brady talked about with James Corden, and I'm going to hit that later on in this show. Is New England's? You know, what are they going to do, man? I mean, are they going to really draft a quarterback first round? Is it possible that Jimmy G could shake loose and there's a reunion, or Alex Smith?
Yeah.
I mean, what are their plans? Cam re-signed? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah,
New England's thinking
so I think if Jimmy G were to come available, they would absolutely have an interest. You know, and I'm sure you guys have talked about it on the show. I just don't think that happens unless the Niners have a clear upgrade. And I'm not saying they're married to Jimmy G, but, you know, I mean, absent like Deshaun, maybe they fall in love with somebody, you know, in the draft. Like, I've heard Trey Lance from North Dakota State would be a very strong fit for Kyle's offense. So maybe it's somebody like that. You know, the trouble is for New England is, can you wait for that? You know what I mean? Like, can you wait for the night? It's like, say Watson comes available in April. Say, you know, you say it's one of the guys in the draft, and, you know, you have to wait until after the Niners figure out if they're going to get their guy or not. Like, can you afford to wait that long and leave your quarterback situation unaddressed, which is sort of what put them in the position last year where they were signing Cam Newton on July 1st. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's the timing part of this, and this applies to a lot of teams, by the way. The timing part of this and what they want to do is absolutely a factor. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they bring back Cam on a cheap contract and they have another veteran there, whether it's a Ryan Fitzpatrick or a Marcus Mariota or whatever, and then they continue evaluating the quarterbacks in the draft. And again, like, I think if Jimmy were to come available tomorrow, yes, absolutely, they would go and do something like that. But I think the more likely scenario right now would be maybe to throw a couple of veterans at the position, continue to do your evaluation of all the guys in the draft, and, you know, who knows? Maybe one of them falls to you at 15. Maybe you see somebody you like enough to move up. But I think for right now, you know, the Patriots are going to be very aggressive at some other positions, and it wouldn't surprise me if they just try to give themselves a couple of veteran options to tread water with for the time being.
Albert, you're the man. Thanks for the call. Look for me next week when I'm told the cuts are going to be crazy, and let's do this on the regular, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rich. And hey, congratulations on your basketball team. You know, I get after you when things are going bad.
Yes.
You know, Chihuahua's got a pretty good thing going.
No, I know, and you're saying that just because my alma mater beat the alma mater over the weekend. But the Illini. I mean, it's a dynamite conference. The Illini just handed Michigan a nice little calling card yesterday. So we'll see how it all works out.
It's crazy, man. It really. I didn't even see that, so I wasn't like. But I mean, it's like you look at it, it's insane. It's like every week, it's like you look at the schedule and there's like a top 10 team on there for your team. You know what I mean?
Thanks for the call, Albert. You're the man. Appreciate it. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.